Hello. Yeah, it's a very inspiring story, sir. You started in 2000 and it's almost been like 17 years that you've been. Uh, the question is, what was the lowest point in your whole career and how did you overcome it? What was your lowest point? Like, when you thought that, okay, I'm not going to like go any further, and then how did you overcome that?
When the question is what is the lowest point, how do you overcome that?
Yeah,
How did you
in,
overcome
in
that?
your career,
the
like
biggest challenge
biggest
faced
challenge
so far?
that
I see.
you faced.
Uh, I don't know whether there is a lowest point. Every day there are lows and highs. Even now there are highs and lows. It's not that there is one lowest point. I can say that is the lowest point. I won't know what is the lowest point. Still life is ahead. So having said that, but I can say the constraints are, managing the people. I think manage at the CEO level is not about technology. It's about managing, let us say, the other human beings. That is a real challenge. There only you go high and low every day. So I think if you can understand that, it's not about technology. It's not about, they do the technology. It's for you to get it, done by them. That is the biggest challenge, I can say. In that, the highs and lows are day by day, month by month, or hour by hour. We don't know.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
I think I can just fill the time for another 2-3 minutes. You see, my basic interest, I can tell you now. I was telling her to talk more about what I do otherwise. One is the business and the technology. That's one thing. Actually, IMI Mobile is in the business of developing technology. It is not a business using technology. Like now, there are old businesses which are now using technology and become new businesses. New way of doing old businesses, like selling books or selling retail and all that. They are old businesses, but they are using technology to do in a new way. Whereas we are in the business of developing technology. That way we are, I could call it an infrastructure company, data infrastructure. Having done that, I am more involved with, of course I got associated with this documentary film called Monk with a Camera, an American Buddhist monk about his life. And then I am more involved with the work of the Krishnamurti foundations worldwide. I don't know, you heard of Judy Krishnamurti. I'm more touched by his teachings, and my energy is more dedicated to this in the schools, archival, publications. There again, we use social media and all that. So bringing whatever I can to work with the foundations worldwide in India, UK and USA. This is my, I can say, major area of where I put my energy now. But of course in the company I take care of only strategic matters. Because I wanted to, institutionalize the management of the company. It's not a company which should be dependent on one man. So I wanted to see that we institutionalize the management. Once the investors have exited, I got morally discharged. The investors, we got nearly $30 million have put into our company. Once they exited, so I got morally discharged. So I'm pursuing things of my personal passion. I think that's it. I think I don't know what value I could add here. I'm not sure. It's quite a huge area. And
Oh, you have a question? That's great. Hi, sir. I'm also a chartered accountant. I heard you're a chartered accountant. How come you flipped from CA or accounting to entrepreneurship, and like what was the trigger off point?
actually, you said you are also a chartered accountant, but I am not a chartered accountant. I was a chartered accountant.
Same thing, yeah. Same thing.
No, actually, I don't believe in all this. These academic qualifications is one thing. I can't deceive myself by that qualification. Because I'm chartered, I can be better off than somebody who doesn't have the qualification. I think qualifications have a limitation. It's not the qualification, it's the qualities is important. So I always had interest to, interacting with human beings. As a chartered accountant, what I was doing this, what they call ticking. That used to put me to sleep. I said, this is not what I will do. Maybe I study chartered accountancy. It doesn't mean that I have to force myself to do this job. So that was never my cup of tea. And always I wanted to do something, what I can say, worthwhile out of India. Out of India, I'm not a man with a lot of wealth, to do big projects. Software, one thing that was easy. But again, in software, I didn't want to do body shopping kind of thing. I had met all the so-called bigwigs then itself, but I said I'm not going to do that. I will rather do a social service in India rather than doing that kind of work. That was how I would look at it. That is my personal thing. So I said, let us do something original out of India. Technology development, but a very challenging thing that is. That means you should be prepared to go through the journey. So I enjoyed that. So there the journey is the reward. Reward is not at the end of the journey. So I don't know I answered your question. Chartered accountancy, but however, I must tell you the credit to chartered accountancy. As a CEO, I realized by looking at other CEOs who are not chartered accountants, I realized that not many CEOs would know the difference between cash and profit. When just cash is good, when there is no cash till it is good situation if you are making profit, they will know the difference. When the loss is good, when the profit is not so good, the distinction, I think the appreciation of the distinction, a chartered accountant has that, I can say. So I was, though I say I'm not a chartered accountant, I was a chartered accountant, but the understanding of the accounting won't go away. If you see the balance sheet any day, you could understand. So, but I never constrained myself by these academic qualifications.
So my name is Sailesh. Could you please elaborate on the Krishnamurti Garu's school of thought that you are taking forward in both countries?
This is a big question, and I wouldn't know how we can deal with that. You said, what is G.D. Krishnamurti's thought?
Check. How are you taking the school of thought of G.D. Krishnamurti to these schools in India and abroad?
Yeah. First of all, Krishnamurti questioned the limitations, the thought itself. So I'm not taking any school of thought, first of all. There's no school of thought. He would rather call it school of thoughtlessness, he would say. So I'm not, of course, thought is its place, but you should go beyond it, he would say. Anyway, having said that, my interest is to expose Krishnamurti teachings to the, let us say, humanity at large, in India especially, and in internationally. Today's publications are mostly online now, they've gone digital. So whatever my background is, that's of help. How to disseminate his teachings using new media channels is one of the very vital functions of the foundations. Again, they cannot do it as a propaganda. No interpretations. Simply expose and leave it there. No, we are not propagating anything. We are not telling anything anybody. It's up to them. You just show what he said, that's it. So that is what I do.
Any other last questions? Okay, thank you. It's great listening to you, sir.
So thank you, Renuka, for giving this opportunity. But I am not sure whether I have really fulfilled anybody's expectation. What they expected, I don't know what they expect in this kind of conferences. But however, I am always available. If anybody would like to meet me personally, I am happy to share my experiences. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really value-added listening to your journey. You have a wonderful ups and downs over to your journey and shared it. Thank you so much. Can I request Mr. Nasireddy to come over to the dais and give a memento to Mr. Vishwanath Alluri? Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Vishwanath Alluri, to be here. Thank you, Mr. G.R. Reddy. Thank you so much, sir. Now that we have almost to the end of the sessions, let's move on to the next panel discussion, which is about investors and mentors playing a vital role in startups. The panelists are Mr. P. Srikanth, Mr. Narsi Reddy, and Mr. Sanjay Shetty, and Mr. Vivek Verma. And the moderator is Vinuta Ralpalli. Over to you, Vinuta. Hi everybody. A very good evening. We've just seen yesterday what a good mentor can do. We have won the silver with the help of a great mentor with us. And as such, we are here to discuss more about mentorship and entrepreneurship and investments. So can we just start with introductions?
Hello. My name is Srikanth. I look after Hyderabad Angels investments, portfolios and exits. Would like to take more questions after we have this round of introduction, and subsequently, happy to kind of interact with each one of you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Vivek Verma. I am a coach, investor and a philanthropist. I run a coaching and leadership training business, and I am also a startup ecosystem player and an investor.
Hello everyone, I am Sanjay Shetty. I represent 50K Ventures. We work with very early stage startups.
My name is Narsi Reddy. I'm the founder and managing director for the Smart Room. Thank you.
How many are entrepreneurs here who have already started something? As you know, there are so many ups and downs every day, and to have somebody that we can talk to and try to resolve our issues is what a good mentor should do ideally. And how do you go about choosing a good mentor? What are the things that a startup should look at when they're choosing a mentor?
So, as coming from an investor perspective, how I would look at it is that somebody who can really give some, mind space to you guys, because somebody who can kind of help you with his past experience and credentials and network, right? And of course kind of teach you what are the moral values and kind of hold them very high. So in fact, a lot of them put in a package. More importantly, somebody who can actually spend that time, give that time to you guys. That's very important.
I guess it's a question of finding, besides the skills, what Srikanth talked about, it's also to find what is the common passion. Is there something that you share or the mentor shares with you from a passion perspective? Because one of the most important things for an enterprise to be successful is the purpose, is the value that you are kind of talking about and creating. So I think it's also equally important when you're choosing a mentor to see that is there a passion sharing that can happen, or is it just about knowledge? Because in my view, a good mentor should be able to bring both good quality of knowledge and skill and passion, so that he is also driven or she is also driven in the same manner, if not at the same level as you, to take the business to the next step.
So my take on finding a mentor is like, first you need to identify a mentor who can really understand your business, specifically the domain, so it could be the model. So where initially you should be in a position to help you in iterating your model, where is the right kind of, especially if you're in a technology company startup, like a mentor who's having that kind of technology background will definitely help out. So you should be very specific on choosing a mentor first who is suitable for your domain.
Maybe I may have a completely different perspective on this mentorship or coaching or whatever we call it. So I think that one of the biggest problem, especially in Indian startups or Indian ecosystem of startups, are like a lot of these organizations, right? So I see that, right? See, the entrepreneur is the key guy. But I see that you are the mentor for yourself. Maybe when you decide to start a company or when you want to do something, you might have thought like you would not have slept for many days. And I see that, right? You could have advisories at one certain level, but like if somebody is coaching, somebody is mentoring, I think you are not even ready to start the business. Like you need to have what you are doing it, right? You need to understand. You need to able to communicate. You need to able to justify your financial models. And I believe, like as an entrepreneur, you think you are leading the thing. You think that you should be able to dictate the terms. So I think I don't believe in this, like the mentorship or a coach, or I'm not come across, or I don't believe in that. But I certainly agree, right? As a company or a startup, one thing I advise to a lot of young entrepreneurs like me also, you need to have a right experienced people. Like a lot of, right, like maybe you have a young blood and you want to do something, and you have a lot of bigger ambitions to do something, and then after that, right, and the people, right, a lot of the leadership team always want to get a next to him. And they don't want to hire a guy who is better than him actually. So as long as you go and start hiring the people who is experienced enough to run the business, you have that thought, you have that energy, you have that aggression, but you need to surround it by a very experienced team. Then I think, I leave it to maybe you can have a right, like advisory board and something to connect you to the right people for the investment and all the things. But I don't believe in day-to-day mentorship to the startup or entrepreneur. You should be leading the show.
So just to ask an add-on question for that. As such, the entrepreneurial journey is very lonely. There are so many highs and lows. Don't you think a third person's perspective sometimes could just be what you need?
See, that's one of the fundamental questions. I think maybe sometimes somebody can come and really help you. But look at like you have named the companies in Bay Area or here, or there's the successful companies, right? Look at it. They're not like grown up by mentors actually. So I completely agree in the sports side. Yesterday Gopichand has done a tremendous job like training the Sindhu. But that's not the same case for the startups. Talk to Steve Jobs, anybody, right? They're not like grown up by mentors actually. Because if you need to have your own conviction, right? And you need to know his business. If somebody else is coming and doing a mentorship, and I'm sure he should have been an entrepreneur, and he should have done much better than him, right? But I can challenge, right? The same thing I challenge even the next generation students, right? Whenever I go and talk to the students, I tell them, I inspire them, you are better than your teacher. Remember, if your teacher is better than, like, it's okay, but that's the thing. When our Indian society, that's strongly missing. You always think somebody is teaching you is better than you. But start questioning, start taking the steps. See, the whole, the Indian the startup ecosystem is the money. Like as the startup company started, you have 10 advisories and 10 mentors try to show up. But I think that it's not a mentorship, give them the money. They know it what they are doing it. If you can step up and just give a check to them, that is more than enough. Look at like in a Bay Area or Silicon Valley, most of these guys, when they go and talk, the entrepreneurs talk to them, without no questions asked, they write 100K, 200K, 300K checks. I have more respect to them than this mentorship or coaching.
Many students here? Do we have many students? Yeah. So Vivek, this is more for you. When do you think is the right time to start up? What would be the right age? And what is the role of early stage support, whether it be through teachers or mentors? When do you think is the right time that students should look at starting up?
So I'll answer that question slightly differently. I will answer it saying when is the right time for someone to look at entrepreneurship rather than look at startup. Because in my view, startup is probably a subset of entrepreneurship, though a lot of times the world looks at it in reverse, that entrepreneurship is a subset of startups. So I would kind of reverse that and say from an entrepreneurship standpoint, I don't think there's any age. there's been enough cases of people who have been school dropouts and who've built very successful businesses, whether it's in the technology space or otherwise. So I think in terms of when is the right age when people can start thinking like an entrepreneur, I think that it must start as early as possible. Being a certified and trained coach, we say that anyone above the age of 5 years is coachable, is someone with whom you can work because their brains are developed to the extent that they can think and act in a manner where a lot of these impressions can be created. So to answer your question in terms of when can the entrepreneurship thinking be inculcated in people, it can be in school children. Maybe 5 years is too early, but maybe somewhere in the 10 years, 12 years age, I think it can start. And I think there are a lot of initiatives now that are being done where some of these things are starting. You know, whether it is the TIE initiative that they're doing with young entrepreneurs. A lot of schools are now starting from 10th grade, starting to focus on innovation, on creating new products, on prototyping and doing all of that. Coming to your specific question as a subset of that in terms of startups, my sense is I think it's a good time for people to do that when they are in high school or in graduation. More because they've got enough exposure to what the world is standing for, what could be the need that they are trying to satisfy, and how can they kind of look at creating a holistic solution. So I would tend to think high school graduation is probably the time when they should look at as a first step, as early stage startups. But is there an age when one should look at a startup? I don't think there is an age. Somebody can start that in school. Somebody could be an entrepreneur at the age of 50. It doesn't matter. You know, at both ends there are advantages and disadvantages of doing that, and there isn't a right formula to say it should happen at this age or that age.
Srikanth, Hyderabad Angels has invested in a lot of companies in the last few years. I'm sure there are wonderful mentors that support and help startups. Have there been situations where probably the mentors had a different point of view, you had a different point of view? Were there any kind of situations?
So, I mean, that's natural to happen, and it has happened also. But I think, beyond a point, what happens is you kind of agree to disagree, but then, you kind of find a way to work together. And I think which is healthy. So, in fact, I keep telling all our portfolio companies that, you guys are free to kind of come back and discuss with me what the issues are, while we can probably tell you 3 or 4 ways to kind of handle those issues, but then ultimately you are the ones who have to take a call on what needs to be done. So the day you look up to me as to what the exact only solution is to your problem, I think I would probably write off that investment. So therefore it has to be a two-way process, but ultimately, the founder has to take the call. We like to see it that way. I mean, our support is there, our mind space, bandwidth, all of that, of course, would be there because, we've invested, our skin is in the game, right? But you will definitely have more confidence if the founder is actually, in the driver's seat.
So just to continue on the same question, all the angel networks invest in pools. Basically, everybody pools in their money. Do you think an investor should be on board as a mentor? What are the advantages and disadvantages of that?
So it's not like a mentor is there on the board. So we typically take a board seat, and therefore the board director obviously plays an active role. Plus the company also has access to all the members, who are investors with Hyderabad Angels, right? Which is like more than 100 today. So that's how we look at it. And again, as in fact I partly agree with what he was also saying, Narsing. So that you should be smart enough to take, what you hear so many things, but pick and choose what is actually workable for you, right? So there are many people who can give you free advice. Likewise, there are many people who like to take, just some kind of an equity, sweat equity, kind of advisory equity. I don't think that does really good unless they're ready to kind of put some hard money like into the play, right? Again, it is not, I'm not trying to generalize it. There are genuine cases where there are gurus, there are mentors who kind of can't put the money, but they add a lot of value. Along the way, maybe you should be wise enough to kind of pick the brains, take their advice. But again, one size doesn't fit all.
I'd like to kind of demystify something here that, a lot of times, at least in India, and to that extent I do slightly disagree with you, Dr. Reddy, that there's a difference between a mentor and a coach. And both bring very different values to the business. So from a mentoring perspective, you need to look at somebody who has knowledge in the same area. It does not necessarily need to mean domain. It could even be the fact that you have run a business, so you know the life cycle of a business and you can advise from that perspective. So that's the value a mentor brings. And a lot of times people in India get confused between the two words. Now, as a kind of contrast to that, a coach is someone who does not bring any of the background that you require for your business. We are, as trained coaches, actually trained to say that you do not bring, even if you bring a background, in the conversation with a coachee, you do not bring the background that you have built into the conversation. Because the belief of a coach is that the answers lie with the coachee. I cannot provide you answers, because whatever answer I provide you based on my knowledge, my skill, is what was relevant for me. What was my circumstances when this worked. Those circumstances, one because of a time gap, and second because of the circumstances gap, will never be the same for you. And hence a lot of times the mistake a lot of us make is that I went and asked for advice. One, somebody gave advice, which as a coach you're not supposed to do. And second, I took the advice at face value and then I went and implemented it and it didn't work. And 9 out of 10 times it will not work, because the circumstances are very different. So coming to your question of how does that difference happen, I think it's up to the founder or the entrepreneur to select people, to say that these are people from whom I want mentoring because they bring domain knowledge or functional knowledge or business knowledge. And here is someone with whom I want to work as a coach. And as a coach, you don't need to be from a business. For example, as a coach, I coach housewives, I coach heart surgeons. I'm not a heart surgeon by profession. I don't know anything once I go into an operation theater. The only way I have been into an operation theater is on a bed as a patient. But that does not prevent me from an heart surgeon finding answers to his problems, because that's the training I bring to the table. And that's a coach. That's when I wear a coach hat. But when I look at it as an investor, I wear a mentor hat and saying, I have run a business in the past and these could be possible solutions. But both approaches, I think what Shrikant mentioned, is the key in both the approaches, that I cannot be the one giving the solution. Even if I am attempting to give the solution as the mentor or as a coach, I think it's for the founder to say, I have heard you, I will now go back and see what's the best advice for me, and I will implement what I need to do. And that's the key.
I'll just add a little more to the same question. Basically, as an investor director sitting on the board, you have to report to the rest of the directors about the performance of a company. Do you think a startup would be very comfortable and vulnerable enough to share what they're going through to the same person who is actually reporting to the rest of the investors? So that was more what I was looking at.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing. So this I see a very common tendency in few of our portfolio companies. So after investment, we have one investment director, and sometimes he's also a mentor to them. So we always encourage the startups to disclose, because as a business there will be a lot of uncertainties, right? It's not always after funding you're going to grow big. Definitely there's also going to be a good number of obstacles, or you may not perform well due to some uncertainties. So it's very much important first to reach out to your mentor or your investment director, discuss with him what happened, and is the person the point of contact for rest of the investors, right? So he's going to definitely first together they come up with a solution, right? So most of the startups in such kind of situation, they panic, or they'll be worried like what investors will think because we have taken their money and we are not performing and all. But it's understood. End of the day, when an investment is done, it's done not expecting any high returns or profitable, right? It's only to encourage them, keeping in mind it's a high risk capital and also business uncertainties in mind. So this investment director plays a very important role talking to these startups and also the rest of the investors, what the situation, why it occurred, and how it can be pacified. So an investment director will always comfort the startup. At my experience, when I see most of our portfolio companies, they're very comfortable to talk to the investment director / mentor about whatever situations they're going through.
Actually, any thoughts on any of your investors, advising you? How do you respond? Like,
I don't mind any kind of transparent discussions with my investors. I would be more open up with my investors about the business plans or my financial situation, anything, right? They are the more important for me than anybody actually. But I don't seek a mentorship from my investor at all. It's the end of the day my call, right? It's my, whatever I feel, I put it out. I convince him. If he doesn't get convinced, then I find a right investor who get convinced with my story. I never seek a mentorship from the investor. But I just be as transparent as possible to put out whatever is happening in the business. It's the end of the day, right? We have all have to take a collective decision. If it has to be passed, it passes.
sure. Sanjay, we'll start with you. We've been in the ecosystem for 4 or 5 years now, and so many things have changed. But still, I don't think we have not solved the problem of finding the right mentors and the right startups. What do you think is the missing link?
Yeah, so as you said, since if you take from 2008 and 9, things have changed a lot. So earlier, if you see, even the number of startups or people picking up startup entrepreneurship as a career was very less. But today, if you see, it is increasing drastically. Even today, a lot of even corporate employees who want to quit their jobs and either join a startup or want to do their own startup, right? So yes, there's a problem. Definitely, I agree that it's always a challenge to find a right kind of mentor. It doesn't mean that there are no sufficient mentors in the market. There are mentors scattered everywhere, but it's only you need to find them. So events like this or different forums are trying to help them out, the startups, to find the right kind of mentors. And I'm sure eventually in the coming years, definitely it will be solved, because even a lot of incubators, accelerators are emphasizing too much on mentorship. So by which they're also roping in all mentors, experienced guys who have achieved something in their life, or who are the people who can be the game changers for the startups. Right now, yes, it's still a little difficult, but I'm sure like in the coming years, it's going to change.